I'm going to show you guys how to install this Aprilaire 700 automatic. I already have it completely installed, so I'm just going to share with you what I learned and how I have it set up right now. My first tip, make sure you have not only your wiring diagram, which I'm sure you are fully aware of, but then there's also this pamphlet that comes with the with a little temperature gauge. I didn't see this throughout my entire installation. I had a lot of questions along the way, and they're answered in here. Specifically, like this page here, that tells you exactly what every terminal does and goes into more detail on how to hook this up to your furnace board. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the furnace board and how I have it set up. So as you can see, got the Aprilaire 700 controller right here set up. It's powered up. It's reading 31% relative humidity. It's installed on my return. So the return means the air's going through this pipe over here, or this ductwork over here. It's getting sucked in, goes down, gets thrown into the furnace, and then back up the updraft. Alright, so here's the Aprilaire. It's going to be kind of hard to show you because it's in such a tight spot, but there it is. There's the solenoid here. This is the little guy that you hook your water into. You just use a 1/4 inch flexible copper pipe is what I used. I just picked up, I think, like 10 feet at Lowe's. It was relatively inexpensive. I have that running to my hot water pipe off my hot water heater. Alright, so I've never used a saddle valve before, and I don't really like plumbing a whole lot because it makes me nervous. But this was extremely easy to do. All you have to do is YouTube a couple videos on how to install a saddle valve, and that should do the trick. Once I turned my water off when I did the install, and I turned the water back on once I had it hooked up on both ends, and I had just a little tiny bit of a leak right here on this guy right there. All I had to do was just tighten him down another 1/4 turn on both ends, and that got rid of my leak there. Alright, to get the Aprilaire up there in the first place, you got to cut out a hole. The paper that comes with it is to be used as a template. I would cut just inside the diagram, especially on the top and the bottom, just because the way that it sits in there and the way that they want you to screw it in. It's kind of hard if you cut it out exactly to how the template shows. Alright, I'll go ahead and show you the wiring now. So I'm going to take off this cap here and show you how the wiring is. Just show you the terminal. So there you see we've got all your connections there. I will mention that I am not using the automatic wires right now. I'm actually switched to manual. It'd probably be easier to see when the LEDs are off, but you can trust me on this one. I'm set to manual, not automatic, so it's not using the outdoor thermostat right now. I have it set on manual control. The majority of these wires run down to my furnace board down here. Go ahead and pop that off. Now, if you heard that click, you know that this little toggle switch here turned my power off to my circuit board. Well, that also turned off the power to my control unit up there. Notice it's not blue anymore. So I'll go ahead and go through some wiring in here. This is probably the trickiest part for me, as I haven't really ever done any electrical work as far as installing new outlets and such. So the Aprilaire ships with a transformer, which all it does is it converts the 110 volt down to 24 and 10. The 24 volt on mine is here on the right and the 10 on the left. And then there's a part in the back that you can't see because it's screwed into a hole that has a black and a white wire coming out of it. And that is what powers the transformer. When I first installed this, I thought those white and black wires were somehow supposed to go to something that the Aprilaire provided, but in closer examination of the wiring diagram, it really looks like that 110 needs to come from your furnace board, or it needs to be hardwired from your existing electrical in your house. So while I'm on that topic, I'm just going to keep going into the wiring here. So this white and the black, alright, these two orange wire nuts, they're connected to the white and the black off the transformer. So on the transformer, I got the white and the black coming out, and they're connected to the white and the black coming out to not the hum port, but the EAC. I'm going to see if I can get a better, that's a little bit better there. So there's the hum, there's the EAC, and then there's two neutrals. Originally I had it hooked up to the hum, and then I realized that the hum only works when the heat is being called. So I wanted my humidifier to run when there wasn't, when the heat wasn't triggered. In most homes, I read on a forum that it takes more to humidify your home than it does to heat it. So if you simply rely on your humidifier to humidify your entire home only when the heat's being called, you're gonna have a hard time satisfying or getting up to your humidity point that you need to be at. So that's why I have it hooked up to EAC. EAC turns on whenever the fan in the furnace turns on, or whenever your blower turns on, one of the two. So that's why I have it hooked up to EAC and then the neutral. So that's the black going to the EAC, white coming from the neutral, and they're hooked up to the transformer. So now on the transformer, you've got two connections. You've got a 10 volt and you've got a 24 volt. The 24 volt goes outside the furnace board through a hole and then up to one of the brown wires on the Aprilaire unit. Alright, so that takes care of one of them. There's two brown wires coming off the Aprilaire. So that 24 volt line that comes from the circuit board, or I'm sorry, from this transformer, 24 volt, goes up to the brown wire. Okay, the other connection off of the transformer is 10 volt. So we'll follow this one. And this goes to the first H on our humidity controller. So that's that red wire there going to the first H. That's from that 10 volt on the transformer. So if you step one to the right and look at the second H, that H connects to the other brown wire on your Aprilaire unit. Okay, so at this point you've got one of the brown wires off the Aprilaire going to the 24 volt transformer, and then you've got another one going to the second H on your controller. Okay, so the only other part that really tricked me with the wiring was the green wire, or the connection going to the G. So you have a G and a GF. The G is an input port, and that is coming from your thermostat where you set the temperature. So at first I thought, well, that's kind of silly. I don't want to have to run a cable going all the way up to my thermostat. But after reading the small pamphlet, I understood better that what it wanted you to do was to unhook the green wire to the, well, it may not be green in your case, but the G, unhook your G on your furnace and then tie it into another low voltage wire and make that connection, make that wire go to the G input on your humidity control. So if we take a look at this and we can follow it back, right? So we got the green wire. We got the green wire with the wire cap on it, and it goes through this 18.5 wire. And the 18.5 wire, there it is, and it's going to G. Now the GF over here, where you see that blue wire, it's hard to see the F. My apologies. There we go, there's the F, but you can't say G anymore. So you got that blue wire going through the same 18.5 gauge low voltage, and that blue is connected to your G, the one that you unplugged the green from. So the way I look at this is basically your humidity controller is now intercepting that G call and then sending another G call to your furnace controller. Okay. Everything else is pretty self-explanatory when you look at the wiring diagram. It's going to show you exactly what to connect, C to C and W to W, Y to Y. If you have existing connections there like I did, I just added them in. Okay, so I've got 2 wires in some spots. Okay, so that really takes care of the wiring as far as what connections I have. The wiring that I chose was at Lowe's, and it was just 18 gauge 5 wire. It's the low voltage, so you can get that at Lowe's and you can have them spin it off for you. So if you look at this, there's 5 wires, 1 2 3 4 5 inside this one tube. Kind of reminds me of like Ethernet cable. So all I do is just cut some off and use the wires. Just keep in mind, just remember or write down on your diagram what color you used for what letter, and then run it down. I got 10 foot of this stuff and it was pretty cheap. I don't remember the cost. Now I needed some other connections like this one here that's going somewhere else. I just used some thermostat wire that I picked up because if you're planning on running the automatic temperature control outside, you're gonna have to pick some of that up anyway. So pick up an extra 10-15 feet. The stuff's dirt cheap. And then just cut off of that to make any new connections that you need. So that takes care of all of what I ordered for all the wiring and everything. I will just kind of show you. Oh, also here, just a quick note. I went to Lowe's to get this clear plastic tubing, and it says that you need a 1/2 inch plastic pipe or plastic, drain. When I went to Lowe's, I was confused because there was a 1/2 inch in ID and a 1/2 inch in OD. So make sure you get the 1/2 inch in ID, which is inner diameter. I was just kind of scratching my head there at Lowe's there for a couple minutes, wondering which one I should get. So that just runs down. I need to trim that up so it runs down cleaner. But that's the idea. So we'll go ahead and test it out now so you can see what it looks like. I'll put this guy back on. Alright, put that back on. Notice I just got my power back here, which is great. When you're working on all this stuff, don't rely on that little switch in your furnace to turn off all the power. Make sure you turn off the power at your circuit panel to reduce any risk of you getting shocked. One thing I will mention, when you're using all this wire for your low voltage and everything, the EAC port and the neutral, make sure you don't use your low voltage wire there. You want to use 12 gauge. So grab some spare stuff that you used for your regular indoor plumbing, or not plumbing, but wiring, like wiring up an outlet or something like that. That's all I used. Just make sure you don't use the low voltage for that wiring to the transformer. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this out. I'm just going to go ahead and put it to test. The light will turn on. You can hear the fan stir up, and my solenoid, that's what's making that hissing noise. And you can tell water is running through it when you hold your hand up to it and the water's hot. So it'll start coming out of there pretty soon. It takes just a couple minutes, or less than a minute really, because this test only really runs for a minute, I believe, before it starts flashing an error, or flashing a message rather, on your humidistat control. One thing I will mention, if you do run it to the EAC, I don't know if I mentioned it before, make sure you run it with hot water. If you try and run it all the time, then, or try to run it off of EAC and not heat, then the cold water doesn't work very well. Okay, so the test is done. You can see the water coming out there. I'll go back here. Don't be alarmed when you see that. That doesn't mean it's not working. It just means, hey, dealer who installed it, don't leave it here. So there we go. Change that to whatever my desired humidity is. Since I'm running in manual mode, I have to go by this little chart here. And this is this sticker's in your little pamphlet. So my zoom's not very good, but there you can kind of see for your outdoor temperature, you should have it there. So it's about 15 degrees outside right now, so I would set it right above, in between 4 and 5, to achieve that, I don't know, what, 30% humidity. I'm at 35 right now, so that should do fine. So one thing I will mention too is that if you want to test this out and you turn it all the way up to 7 and you wait here for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, and it's not turning on, don't think that it's broken. I found that what will happen is after an hour of it not doing anything, it will run the fan for 2 to 3 minutes, and then it will check your humidity after it pulls in some fresh air, and then it will activate the humidifier to try and humidify your home without the heat being on. Every time the heat runs, well, no, that's not true. Okay, so if you've reached your humidity and the heat is on, it won't always kick this on. So just keep that in mind. But make sure, if you want it to run all the time like I do, make sure your blower activation switch is on. Okay. That's another piece of advice I got for you. General installation tips. I would say don't use tin snips unless you feel really comfortable with it. If you do use tin snips, make sure you are using gloves, because you can get some really sharp edges in there. So please let me know if you have any questions. Everything seems to be working out just fine for me right now. Make sure you don't use duct tape. Make sure you use foil tape. Yeah, that's it. Have a great day. Good luck.